Okay, so we're looking at these questions here. For question one, it says given the demand supply functions as follows: P equals 50 minus 2QD and P equals 25 plus 0.5 QS. Plot the two functions on the same graph. Okay, so plotting these functions is how you can do it. We start with the demand curve, which is P equals 50 minus 2QD. Let me just make space for the graph here. We have price on the y-axis, quantity on the x-axis. Remember, law of demand, there's an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. Okay. So an easy way you can get this demand curve, all right, is you can just get the intercepts, basically where the demand curve cuts the y-axis and the x-axis. So for example, you can start with the x-intercept. Just say, okay, when QD, actually the y-intercept, if QD equals 0, you substitute this into the demand function. Okay, 2 times 0, that is 0. 50 minus 0, P equals 50. So here on the y-axis, you label it as 50 here. Okay, this is our y-intercept. This is where the demand function is cutting the y-axis. Then you can also get your x-intercept, where the demand function cuts the x-axis. So you say let P equals 0. So you get your demand function, equate P to 0. 0 equals 50 minus 2QD. Okay, we can take this negative 2QD over the other side, so it becomes positive. So we have 2QD here equals 50. Get the value of QD. 50 divided by 2, that is 25. Okay. So here on the x-axis, you can put 25. Okay, now colleagues, this is just the shortcut way. Okay, I'll also show you the longer way, but this is one fast way you can do it for the demand curve. Okay, then for the supply curve, this is the fast way you can do it. Supply function is 25 plus 0.5 QS. So you can get the y-intercept, where basically the supply function is cutting the y-axis. Okay, and that is when quantity supplied is 0. Okay, so if you substitute QS equals 0 into the supply function, going to be 25 plus 0 0.5. QS, we substitute it with 0 here. 0 0.5 times 0, that is 0. So 25 plus 0, that is 25. So when quantity supplied is 0, the price is 25. So here on your graph, you can put 25 here. Then just draw a diagonal line like that. Okay, this is supply, this is demand. Any questions, colleagues? Before now, we use the long cut method. Yeah, you need to show this working, sir. Because if you just put the graph just there like that, you might lose marks. Mhm. You would always want to include zero, and you can include other numbers, but always include the zero one. Yes, because as you can see for the demand function, when we made quantity demanded 0, we saw where our demand function is cutting the y-axis. When we made price 0, we saw where our demand function is cutting the x-axis. So it will show you where it's terminating basically. Any other questions before we go to the long cut method? Okay, the long cut method. All right. With the long cut method, it's just you just start getting different values of QD. Okay, you make a small table here: price P, quantity demanded here. Okay, so you start when quantity demanded equals 0. Remember, we substituted in our function. We got price is equal to 50. Then you can say, okay, next, when quantity demanded equals, let's say, 2. Okay, because in your graph, if you want them in units of 1, you can keep them there. If you want them in units of 2, you can put it. In units of 5, units of 10, you can use, okay? I would advise to use maybe units of, in this case, the way it's looking, units of 5, okay? So you say when quantity demanded equals 2, so it means you go back to your demand function. So colleagues, let's go to our demand function. When QD equals 2, what is the price? When you substitute 2 into this demand function, what is the price? 46. Okay. So you put here 46 and 2. Are we able to clearly see the figures, or do I need to zoom in the board? Oh. Okay, so right now what we're doing right now, we're using the long cut method to plot this demand graph. Okay. So with this method, you just be picking values of QD. Okay. So when QD, let's get our next value. When QD equals 3, we substitute it into our demand function. What do we get? When QD equals 3, 44. Okay, and then you say, okay, when QD equals 4, we'll end on 4 here. You'll get the concept by here. So when QD equals 4, what is thing? P? Remember, we're just substituting in here. Mhm, 42. Yes. So you continue, you just be picking values. Then when plotting, okay, you come to your, this is called a demand schedule, okay, where it's just showing you the values to plot. So you see when QD is 0, P is 50. When QD is 2, so on your graph, you put here 2. Price is 46. When QD is 3, price is equal to 44. Okay. Until where to stop, it's kind of tricky of where to stop. Okay. Um, But I can think when price reaches 0, that's where you can stop. Okay. Yes. Any questions on how we've done it here? When QD is 4, price became 42. So you plot again. Any questions, colleagues, on this? The same will also be done for the supply graph. Okay. You make it a supply schedule, P and QS here. So you start when QS is 0, P was 25. When QS is 1, or let's use 2 here. When QS is 2, 2 times 0.5, that is 1. 1 plus 5, 26. Okay. When QS equals 4, you substitute back into the supply function here. 4 times 0.5, that is 2. 2 plus 25, that is 27. When QS equals 6, price is equal to 28. And that's how you go again. Okay. When price is 2, so here when price is 2, the price is 26 here. When QS is 2. When QS is 4, the price is 27. And then you continue plotting and you get an upward sloping graph. So any questions, colleagues? That's how you plot these supply and demand graphs. Any questions, Mr. Fumbesh? Are you okay with that? Oh, it's been kicked out. Oh, no, yeah. Mr. Fumbesh, are you okay with that? Madam Raquel, Madam Wansa. Now it was me who was kicked out. Colleagues, any questions? My band was just finished, so that's why I was being kicked out. Yes. Any questions, colleagues, on this before we move to the next part? Can you get me? Are you able to get me? Okay. No questions. We're okay with this. Okay. I assume no questions from anybody else. If you've got a question, please let me know. All right. So we're going to the next part now. We have to determine the equilibrium price. Okay. And after determining the equilibrium price, you can also determine the equilibrium quantity. Now, colleagues, I believe we remember this. What are we supposed to do here before I do the explanations? Now, I'm just asking before I start solving, what is the first thing that we need to do? I can get you now. Yes. Okay, okay, okay. Yes, that is true. You get the two functions, demand function and supply function, and you solve for Q. Okay. So demand function is 50 minus. Now, colleagues, remember at equilibrium, quantity demanded is also equal to quantity supplied. Okay. So here, when you equate them, just write it as Q here. Okay. So our supply function 25 plus 0.5 Q also here. Okay. I believe this is easy to solve. Colleagues, what value did we get? Combine like terms here. 25, 50 minus 25, that is 25. 0.5 plus 2, 2.5 Q. Divide both sides by 2.5. 25 divided by 2.5, we get 10. Q equals 10. That's our equilibrium quantity. Any questions before I move further? Okay. So here on our graph here, where they intersect here, Q equals 10. Okay. Then we want to get our equilibrium price. So you can substitute Q equals 10 into any equation here, the supply or the demand function. Okay, so for me, I will substitute it into the demand function here. When Q equals 10, all right, so we're going to say, so 50 minus 2, substitute Q with 10. So 2 times 10, that is 20. 50 minus 20, that is 30. So our equilibrium price is 30. Okay. Even what I wanted to mention, when plotting these graphs here, when you use this method here, eventually you would even find your equilibrium point like this. You would notice when you made QS and QD10, you'll notice that the price is going to be the same. And there you'll be even able to say, okay, I've determined my equilibrium price and quantity. Yes, so this is our equilibrium price, 30 kwacha, and the equilibrium quantity is 10 units. Any questions? Okay, the next thing, determine the effect on the market equilibrium if government decides to impose a tax of 6 kwacha. Okay, so whenever a tax is involved, always add it to the supply function. Okay, so our supply function here is P equals 25 plus 0.5 Q. So we add this tax over 6 kwacha. Okay, so we now need to adjust the supply function. 25 plus 6, that is 31. The new supply function is 31 plus 0.5 Q. Okay, so this is our new supply function. So because this tax has been imposed, so we expect the price of the good now to rise, basically. Okay, expect price of the good, the equilibrium price to rise because the tax has been imposed. So we need to find this new equilibrium price and this new equilibrium quantity. So to get this new equilibrium price and quantity, we're going to equate this new supply function to the previous demand function. So our demand function was 50 minus 2Q equals 31 plus 0.5 Q. So we solve for our new equilibrium quantity. So it's going to become 50 minus 31 equals 0.5 Q plus 2Q. 50 minus 31, those with calculators, 50 minus 31. I don't not even need a calculator. 19, yes, 19 equals 2.5 Q. So get our new quantity. 19 divided by 2.5. 7.6. Okay. So because of this tax, the good has become expensive. So what happens is even the quantity is going to reduce. So this is the new equilibrium quantity. Quantity supplied and quantity demanded. So now, want to find the new equilibrium price. So you can equate this Q equals 7.6 into either the demand function or the new supply function. Okay, so let's use the demand function here. Or let's use the supply function. So P equals 31 plus 0.5. Then we substitute Q with 7.6. 0.5 times 7.6, we get 3.8. So we have 31 plus 3.8. So 31 plus 3.8, you get 34.8 as the new equilibrium price. Any questions? So that we see on our new graph. We put the graph here. So basically what's going to happen on this, the supply curve is going to shift to the left. Okay, so now I want to know exactly where it's shifted to. Okay, so that we can put this new supply function and get our new point on the graph. Okay, so what you're going to do to see where your new supply function is starting from, okay, you're going to add this new supply function that we got, P equals 31 plus 0.5 Q, right? You're going to equate QS to 0, okay? So when QS equals 0, when you substitute this Q and it becomes a 0 here, 0 times 0.5, 0, plus 31, that is 31. So our new supply function is going to start here at 31 here. Then So at the point 31 here, you draw an upward sloping graph like this. Then your new equilibrium quantity 7.6, 7.6 there. The new equilibrium price 34.8. Okay. Government has put a tax. Cost of production is high for this company, so they're going to produce less. And as they produce less, since this company still wants to stay profitable, it means they need to increase the price. And now when they increase the price, also as consumers, we're also now also going to buy less. So this is the effect of the tax. Okay. Any questions? So where they're saying show this effect in the graph, this is how your graph is going to look. And you're going to explain that when the tax has been added, it shifts the supply curve to the right. Okay, because increase in tax, think of it as increase, cost of production can get higher. Okay. A lot of businesses do not like higher taxes. When taxes become higher, some even eventually go. Okay, others may even produce less. Okay, and when they produce less, they're going to have to also increase the price because they have to remain profitable. Okay, they cannot still continue charging at 30 kwach. Okay, they will be in losses. Yes. Any questions, colleagues? That's how this question ends. Any questions or queries? So, whenever there's a tax, add the tax and make a new supply function. That's the first step. When you've made this new supply function, next step, calculate the new equilibrium quantity and the new equilibrium price. So you equate the new supply function to the old demand function. We get the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity. Once you've determined that on your graph, because you want to know where your new supply function is starting from, okay? Your new supply function, just equate QS to 0 to see where your new supply function is starting from. Like we did here, we found that it was 31. So once you find where your new supply function is starting from, just draw a diagonal line, and where it crosses the demand function, that's where you get your new equilibrium quantity and demand. Now, I hope you also remember price ceilings and price floors, because sometimes your lecturer might bring, I saw in the other assignment they brought a price floor. Here they brought in a tax. So I hope you remember what to do if there's a price ceiling and a price floor. Colleagues, what is a price floor? Let's start with the price floor. What is a price floor? Yes. It's the minimum legal amount that can be sold, that can be charged for that good, the price ceiling, okay? Legal minimum amount that can be sold for that good. And the price, wait, because these two are counterintuitive. We're talking about a price ceiling, right? Price ceiling is the maximum amount that can be charged. Then a price floor is the minimum that can be charged. Then a price floor is above equilibrium. Okay, price floor above equilibrium. And who benefits from a price floor? Is it the consumers or the producer or the sellers? This is equilibrium. So a price floor is above here. And it's the minimum that can be charged. Because since it's a floor, so it means you can go above the floor, listen. So it's the minimum that can be charged. Now I was asking, who benefits more from a price floor? The is the producer, yes. The producer is the one who benefits. So when a price floor is enacted, are we going to have a surplus or a shortage? When a price floor is enacted, are you going to have a surplus or a shortage? A surplus, yes. Okay, you're going to have a surplus because quantity supplied, QS here, where the price flow cuts the supply function, going to be greater than quantity demanded, where the price flow cuts the demand function. So price flow is the legal minimum amount. Then a price ceiling, legal maximum amount. So since it's a ceiling, you can't go above it. You only can go down. So the price ceiling is below the equilibrium price. Okay. And it's the consumers who benefit from it. So when a price ceiling is enacted, we're going to have a shortage. Okay. Because the suppliers are not going to be happy. Okay. Yes.